دكتورة أسماء الفضالة كانت حريصة أن هي تكون موجودة في هذا اللقاء، ولكن بسبب ظرف ضغط الشغل شوية فما قدرت أن هي تكون موجودة معنا في هذا اللقاء، وترسل اعتذارها لكم جميعا. احنا سعيدين اليوم في لقائنا التاسع معاكم، ولقائنا اليوم حسب ما تم الطلب منكم جميعا، وتم تكرار هذا الطلب دائما ان احنا نخصص او نسوي لقاء حول القراءة الأكاديمية. فاليوم لقائنا راح يكون عن موضوع القراءة الأكاديمية، وضيفتنا هي الدكتورة عهود العصفور. الدكتورة عهود العصفور أستاذ مساعد في كلية التربية الأساسية في الكويت، حصلت على الماجستير والدكتوراه من جامعة مارلبون في استراليا. بحث الدكتوراه كان حول سياسة خصخصة التعليم العالي في الكويت، واهتماماتها البحثية تدور حول السياسات التعليمية والتربية المقارنة. شاركت في العديد من المؤتمرات الإقليمية والعالمية، ونشرت مجموعة من الأبحاث العلمية بالعربي وكذلك بالإنجليزي، وهي تشغل حالياً منصب رئيس الجمعية الخليجية للتربية المقارنة. صدر لها مؤخراً كتابها اللي هو حول Higher Education Privatization in Kuwait. فيعني احنا عندنا اليوم ضيفة اعتقد ان عندها تجربة وكانت في نفس البوزيشن مالنا كطلاب دراسات عليا، فاعتقد ان هي راح تنقل لنا تجربتها والاكسبيرينس مالتها، وكذلك بعض النصائح اللي ممكن تساعدنا احنا كباحثين وكطلاب دراسات عليا علشان نقدر تكون قراءتنا اكثر فاعلة واكثر مفيدة. فنرحب بالدكتورة عهود ونعطيها المايك، تفضلي.
السلام عليكم. أول شيء مساء الخير عندنا بالكويت وأيا كان مكانكم. شكراً أول شيء إبراهيم على هالفرصة، وأنا للحين أعد نفسي طالبة دراسات عليا، يعني الخبرة اللي بعطيكم إياها أتمنى أن تفيدكم، وأنا للحين أستفيد منها، لأن الريسيرش هو واحد سواء كنت graduate or a faculty member teaching in any of universities. So, as Ibrahim requested from me last week to present a presentation for graduates or researchers generally, academics, on giving them tips or recommendations on how to read for academic purposes, I created this small or summarized PowerPoint that I'm sure would be helpful, even if you are just started your studies or you're ongoing, just to get back and check your process, if you are on the process or not yet. It will keep you on track. Even if you are an academic, it might help you as well. For me, when I was rereading or do my research for this presentation, I returned back to one of my courses that I've done during my PhD, and that was really helpful in keeping me on track until I finished within 3 years. So I will start. I don't know how you will process it, Ibrahim, if the question and answers will be at the end or...
احنا العادة دكتورة انت تعرضين لمدة نصف ساعة، وبعد ذلك تكون عندنا آخر ثلث ساعة لمسألة الأسئلة والأجوبة، وكذلك إذا كان في أحد عنده تجربة معينة ممكن يشاركنا معها.
تمام. Feel free. إذا كنتوا تبون تسألوا لي in Arabic or English, it's fine. If it wasn't clear or you didn't understand my English, please ask me again to repeat it. I'm fine with it. So let's start the presentation. The topic, as we said, is how to read. I thought this is the most appropriate title to go ahead with it. It's about giving reading tips for researchers. The content of the presentation will be as follows. We will start giving a background about skills and reading, then we'll go through making a start into the research. Where do I start? How to read for research purpose, then how to improve your reading skills, retrieving and documenting at the end the literature. And I will end or finalize with the resources that might be helpful. You can get back to it whenever you need. Reading skill. I thought just identifying what is the meaning of a skill first, and reading separately, just to understand or differentiate about reading skill or a basic reading skill and reading for academics. A skill is the ability to carry out a task with determined results, often within a given amount of time, energy, or both. And this is what we struggle to do, time. Reading is a complex cognitive process of decoding symbols to derive meaning. Reading as a skill, I think we acquired that early in our lives. Most of us, we know how to read, but if you are talking about reading in a second language, you might go through the process from the basics or initial practice until you go. But when you are in an academic or graduate studies, mostly you will be like overcome this stage. What we are talking about, or we will talk about today, is the reading as an academic skill. So we might talk about practice on how to improve our fluency in reading and the factors that influence it, but we will focus on the process on improving your reading or academic reading towards a purpose or towards objective research. Making a start. Usually when we start a research or we start our studies, the main thing that will come mostly, or to most of us, what we are going to research about. Unless you came with a passion or something that you know you want to research, something you acquired from a practice within the field, in education, in schools, in higher education, whatever. But we need to know that you do not have to know everything that has ever been written if you are covering a literature review about a specific topic or a subject that you want to research. In some disciplines, they require that. Simply put, like at the utmost of any research project, you need to have some ideas of what is already known on the topic. This is what's typically or collectively referred to as a literature. Most of it reside in books. However, there are other sources of information covered under the name of literature, such as reports, theses, policies, archives, digital resources. So if we are talking about literature review, some of us, the research will take them to policies, reports, instead archives or any other resources, instead of only focusing on journals or published books. Some research departments, as I just said, require from a researcher to virtually encompass all that is known about the topic before proceeding further. This finiteness rarely exists in education, which is a social science, our field mostly. I don't know about most of you, as we deal with the provisional knowledge. Provisional knowledge in shifting dynamics and human behavior that is context specific. And all contexts have unique attributes. Also, we are often working in multidisciplinary mode across a number of research disciplines, which means literatures instead of literatures. So it's impossible that we cover or encompass all that it's written in the topic that we are researching on. For example, if we are researching about comparing policies between countries, you have to get back to study the literature about the policy of the country, the policy processes, their history, to understand their system, so you can write about their any practice or policy that has been emerged. So it's impossible for us to get an overall or virtual overview about everything that is written in the topic. Knowing where to start is often the hardest part. Usually, as I said, when you start a graduate study or a research project in any academic level, or even in like you are motivated or moved across three or your questions or your research will come from mostly those three actions. Either curiosity, you're curious about something emerged in your practice. Passion, you are passionate about something. So in this part, in this case, in this context, you know what are you looking for and you know where to start. And there's another part, they call it novelty. Novelty, that means something you first, what they mean, it's something you practice or you've seen for the first time. So this is something you're not familiar with. You will be studying it or looking at it for the first time in your life. Usually, you will be participating in a project, so you will be asking your supervisors or colleagues to get you know that project, providing you with the reading lists of the literature, so they will guide you. But most of us will come from curiosity, as I may imagine. So if a curiosity is our motive for a research or a research project, how this will take me informing my literature review. First, usually we do the brainstorming to think about our project, all the angles that may reach it, what kind of question that I could ask. Usually we will start our research project with more than one research questions. Then at the end, we will minimize this or summarize it to one overall one, or just frame them, categorize them in 2 or 3 questions. We will check the existing knowledge to see what has been done or written. Look at familiar authors. Let's leave asking our supervisors at the end. We'll look for the keyword for the search. Usually, whatever, for example, my research on about privatization. Usually, I get keywords at the beginning about privatization, higher education, policies, globalization, things I think that they are relevant or might find a way to help or nourish my main research project or main questions, how to answer my questions. Annotation. I have to take notes, making no connection between authors or writers, familiar authors in the field. Colleagues and supervisors. Here will come curiosity and novelty joined, where we have to ask our colleagues and supervisors for familiar authors or people who write in our field or the field of the study that I will be covering. And the novelty-driven or motive, you will be asked, or you will be given actually a basic reading list that you have to cover or read to go further in your research project. But normally, after these steps, you will be creating your own reading list. It won't be fixed; it will be modified for sure at the end. Now, after creating we gather the literature that will help us for our studies or project, we will ask the question how to read. We don't have to read. We do not have to read the whole article or the whole book on every occasion. Sometimes when you start, yes, you want to read the whole thing from the cover to the cover. And if you are passionate about reading, you will never stop. Even if you don't have time to read it at the moment, you will just skip it and keep it at the end. But you will find yourself like very strict with time, and you don't have the energy, the time and effort to spend all the time on reading every literature you want. I'm sure when you go and search through your literature, you will find many articles or books that you would love to read, but you don't have time to it. At this point, you have to learn a skill on how to focus. You might come across irrelevant or tangential literature that might constitute a digression from the focus of your research. You need to bring your intuition and what you already know both into play and save yourself a lot of time on picking. You'll be selective thoroughly on what to read. How to read, framing or outlining now the literature review. You have to use your intuition, as I said, like your background, your instinct, where it takes you. This is relevant to me or not. You have to look for key authors as well, and if they are really very well written in the published or written in the field of study. You have to find those, you have to compare bibliographies, multiple citations of similar or familiar authors. This is how you guide yourself into finding your process or your way through the literature review that is relevant to your research project. After that, your back brain and intuition will come into play when you go through the contents of a book that you found the title of it like relevant to your research. And then you have to go inside the content page and skim and scan, looking at through the titles and subtitles. This is how we should start reading the literature review instead of starting from the first word to the end of the conclusion. You might get further of the contents to conclusions, for example, introduction, conclusion, abstracts. That will save you time, and believe me, they will give you the most of the information that you need for your research, or to decide if it's a good idea or it's a good resource for you or not. After we collecting everything and we gathered our literature review, now we have to read critically, looking for the gaps and tensions. Critical reading, it's not a simple or a surface reading. And something I always like to say, like if we came across reading, not everything written or published, it means it's true. And I found a very interesting quotation that I want to share with from a thesis, actually. Bundy in 2001. He explained it very well, and I would like to read it for you. A couple of things I've noted with this approach, like it's a curiosity, though you need to read very critically. Just because it's written doesn't mean it's true. I find I need to return to some of the key authors I've identified and reread their work several times during a research project. It's normal to happen. As my awareness and understanding grow, I find I can start to read the same author and same work with quite a different understanding at different reads. I also find it important to be open to the theoretical frameworks, often unstated, influencing any particular author. What is the author bias? Where are the gaps? What aren't they seeing? Is there another school of thought that might look at this from another angle? Is there another field I could explore that would extend my understanding of this area? This is how you should be critical reading or reviewing your literature review. Sometimes, yes, you will be very excited and like thinking of the amazing author that has written this book, but still it doesn't mean that everything he's writing is true. You can see it from your own point of view, from a different angle, from a different background information, because every one of us have its background knowledge, either from the context or from the knowledge that he covered reading through that literature, and he can create his own connections and mapping and networking between regarding or referring them to its own research project. Here we come to how to improve our reading skill. Practice is essential. That's always say practice, practice, practice to the infinity. We will face, or we faced actually, problems or difficulties going through the heaps of readings that we imagined that we could never finish reading those hundreds of resources within this particular time. But what I found it very useful, and I might recommend or suggest you to do, is short-term reasonable targets and objectives. Physical calendar, I thought, what should I call it? Because now most of us, we use the iPhone's calendars or the iPad, but believe me, physical calendar, the wall calendar on your workspace, this is what helped me a lot with the big squares. So you can scratch, write a notes. You can see physically your days flying away from you during your PhD. But if you use them like efficiently, you will be happy seeing the targets done. Move forward, do not and never stop for a translation, only if it is highly needed. Never stop to translate one single word that will just take your attention or get you away from the mood of reading. Unless you have a very quick dictionary now, we can use it now in our iPhones. It is very quick with the audio, okay, it's fine, but don't stop it for a long time just to find a translation for one word. Believe me, you will understand the context. And most of the literature that you will go through, even if you find it very difficult at once, you can revisit it again and read it again, and you will read it with different understanding, different views. Mainly will be influenced after you getting familiar with the topic and the field itself. Technological tools that will save you time. For example, audio. You are not in the mood for reading in this day, so it's other options that you can do. You can use audiobooks. You can use many features using Mac or any, I'm familiar with Mac, I don't know about other operating systems. You just highlight and press read or speak, and you will listen to the book instead of reading it. So this is where technology becomes handy, especially if you have some time traveling or driving. You can, believe me, go through a lot of material of reading. There are lots of factors that might influence your reading skill, and from those factors you can modify the things to make your reading easier or more productive. Font, you can change the font. If it's electronic version of a resource, you can choose the font, you can choose materials. Some people are familiar reading from the screen, they prefer hard copies from the book directly. It would be more enjoyable, but it depends, it's personal preference. Vocabulary, you have to improve your vocabulary. That will help you a lot, and it will come through reading more and more. So vocabulary will enhance and nourish is about specific topic after reading the literature that you have selected or framed for your project. I had something wanted to say about this. Yeah, for example, familiarity, it's very related to vocabulary. Even if you are very good in English, sometimes you came across other fields. When you read one journal article written in that field, you cannot understand anything because you are not familiar or you have no background knowledge about the vocabulary that's been written. So don't be frustrated if you found yourself reading an article that is or seems very difficult. Sometimes you need to get familiar first with the vocabulary or background to understand it more. So you can revisit it again and again and again, it's fine. So how to revisit our literature that we've been reading for a year, 2 or 3. For example, in your 3rd year of PhD, you want to get back to a document or an article or a journal that's been written or you've read in the 1st year. Here we come to retrieving documents, retrieving and documenting the literature. It's very, very, very important from the beginning. From the first article, you will be reading. So reading thoroughly, selectively, and critically is very vital, but so is remembering what is relevant and where it comes from, so you are able to retrieve it. Nothing is so frustrating in the whole of the research process is as half remembering a gem of a previous reading that will shine and strengthen your argument and not being able to find it. I had this problem. I have this in my mind. I read it someplace, but I cannot remember. And you cannot, like in the 3rd year, you get back and read all the journals that you read in the literature generally that you read in your 1st year to find the idea that you're looking for. And if you wrote it without a reference or its source, it will be a plagiarism. So you will be like, you have to avoid it, or you will waste your time again just to get through it again. These days, there are a lot of softwares that's helping us getting back easily to our references, literature review in a way. I'm familiar with EndNote as a cataloging software. You have to start creating or building on your libraries from the first day starting your graduate research study, either in master or in PhD or in academia as writing a journal. You have to create a library for each research project. EndNote is very helpful, especially now after the updates has been done, adding the PDF, and you can work with the PDF, writing your notes inside the software itself. Before, you can just write the information and everything about your bibliography, and you will provide a file or a link that you open it in different software. But now it's much easier that you can work with your PDF within EndNote itself, and you don't have it. Not to mention the online EndNote as well, not the software. So you can categorize everything or cataloging everything that you have and save it in your account on online EndNote. So to retrieve and document the literature, we have first to catalog our articles and books, whatever other resources that we have or collect in our literature. It will be very useful and helpful to categorize the libraries as well, or categorizing references within a library. You can categorize them based on a subject or based on your chapters, for example, if you're writing a thesis, topics, or if you are writing about, it depends. You can categorize, it's a preference on how you frame or design your research. That would be helpful. Then you have to summarize, and taking a critical notes after reading or while reading your literature, you have to make summaries if you find it really useful or important resource, and you make a critical notes. You take a critical notes and you write them down, either on the PDF file itself on EndNote, or you create a file for yourself just to put the reference for the resource itself, and writing your critical notes, and you can add the page number or whatever you can refer back or get back to the original literature. But then we come to sorting and coding your reading, perhaps resorting periodically. Sorting at first initially, then never stop for a long time, because you always can get back to it and resort it again. And you will resort and code your references or resources based on your argument, because your argument or how you structure your research will be different and evolve from the first year until the final year. It will not be stable or fixed from the first year. So it will be an evolving process from the first up to the end. Mapping, you have to map, like it's like categorizing your references. You can map them on how, or shaping them and how to state or present your argument in your research topic. Always taking bibliographic details, and now it's easy, as I said, using EndNote. You just import the reference and all the bibliographic details will be added automatically, but always check. Just make a quick check before you save them, because sometimes those will be imported with missing information. Referencing system, it will be determined by the department. You have to ask about it from the beginning, but again with EndNote it won't be a problem, that you can just change the reference automatically. It will appear on your reference list. There are other softwares like NBivo and Atlas for sorting and coding qualitative data. Those can be also used. Usually they used for the data that you collect after collecting your data for a research project, but they would be also helpful in sorting your references or the quotes, the notes that you're taking from different literature resources that you've read. And you can create networks. For example, that Atlas TI will allow you to network your quotes and notes to create your argument. And you should like, I love to treat my argument or notes taking as a puzzle at the end, and just how to create or shape them at the end, put them together. Sometimes I will take an argument up or down just to frame it in paragraphs at the end, so you can move it thoroughly. Now I reached the end of my presentation. I would suggest a resource written by Tully and David Beckett about educational research, creative thinking and doing, South Melbourne, Victoria. This one, the old version of it, I know they have a new version of it, the 2013. The resource will take you through your PhD journey from the beginning, like choosing your topic up until the end and submitting your final version. It's really, really, really helpful. When you're reading, you feel that the authors are talking to you directly. It's a practical, in a way, like showing you the way and making it easier for you. I hope that you can refer back to it. There is a digital version of it, if I'm not mistaken. And that's all. Thank you for listening, and welcome any questions if you have any questions or comments.
شكرا دكتورة عهود، وشكرا للجميع. نفتح الحين باب الأسئلة، وكذلك مو بس الأسئلة، كذلك المشاركات. أعتقد كلنا احنا في هذه التجربة، الحلو في الموضوع ان احنا نقدر نشارك بتجاربنا، لأن قد تكون في تجربة من التجارب مفيدة حق أحد ثاني يعني. فممكن تستخدمون raise hand علشان أعطيكم الأكسس to unmute. يفضل أنكم تعرفون بنفسكم في البداية، وكذلك تبينون إذا أنتم في أي مرحلة في البي اتش دي، في الماستر، في أي سنة، علشان يكون السؤال واضح أو الإجابة تكون محددة حق السؤال. فالباب لكم مفتوح الآن، سواء للأسئلة أو المشاركات ونقل التجارب. أنا أبدي دكتورة عهود، إذا في مجال. في أول سؤال طرى في بالي، هل تنصحين في فكرة التكنيك إن مثلاً أنا أحط لي وقت محدد إني أنا راح أقرأ هالأرتيكل هذه؟ مثلاً أقول والله هالأرتيكل راح أقرأها في ثلث ساعة أو نص ساعة، فيكون في تشالنج إني أنا أخلصها بهالثلث ساعة أو نص ساعة regardless إذا خلصتها كلها أو لا، ولا تعتقدين إن هذه ما راح تكون ممكن مفيدة بشكل عام؟
For sure مفيدة إنك أنت تحط لك وقت حق article، بس ثلث ساعة نص ساعة in a PhD it depends on the importance of the article. Sometimes articles need 3 days or 2 days to spend on it, but not for sure like constant way, like spend 3 hours or 2 hours just reading. This is my preference. Sometimes you want to read in details, but إذا كانت article like very quick, you want just to skim it and scan it, you can go through it within 20 minutes or 30 minutes. It depends on the importance of the article. But time framing is very crucial. Otherwise, you will find yourself, you just spend time and hours just reading in front of a screen or a book. Don't get yourself isolated from social life. This is my recommendation.
مو هذه المشكلة، أن سالفة السوشيال لايف ولاحظتها الصراحة، أكون معك صريح، يعني نصيحتك لما قلتي don't translate، مرات أحياناً شنو يصير، أقرأ تكست معين أو كلمة معينة أو شيء أحتاج أترجمها، فأسويها كوبي مثلاً من مندلي ولا من البي دي اف، أخذها على جوجل، من أطلع من المود أوف ريدينج، بعدين أكتشف والله خلنا أشوف هالإيميل هذا، بعدين خلنا أشوف هالشغلة الفلانية، في شغلة الفلانية أنا ما شيكتها، ويضيع الوقت في هالموضوع هذا يعني.
الترانزليشن راح توقفك، راح تعطلك وايد. يعني أنت you are not in a test، يعني عندك all the time، يعني إلا إذا كانت الكلمة very very crucial إنك تحس إن إذا ما خذيت معناتها ما راح تفهم الباقي. أوكي هني translate. غير كذي وايد يعني ما راح تخلص، خصوصا اذا if you are in the beginning and you have lots of words، عندك وايد كلمات تبي تعرف معانيها، ما راح تخلص. كلش حط لك خط تحتها او point highlights و get back to it later.
عندنا مريم، تفضلي. مريم العيسى.
يس العيسي. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
أنا مريم العيسي، طالبة دكتوراه بجامعة باث UK، مقيمة حالياً بقطر. بدي أشكركم شكراً جزيلاً على هذه الفرصة الرائعة، وأشكرك دكتور إبراهيم صراحة على الإدارة المتميزة، يعني فوراً تبعت لنا لينكات لأي موضوع يعني إدارة مميزة صراحة. شكراً دكتور عهود على التيبس، فعلاً مفيدة. والحقيقة القراءة لطالب الدكتوراه هي ongoing process، الواحد بيضل بشكل مستمر عم يقرأ عم يتطور خلال هاي الفترة، وكما قالت الدكتور عهود حتى بعد ما يخلص الدكتوراه. أنا عندي تأكيد على نقطة ذكرتها الدكتور عهود وإضافتين من تجربتي الشخصية. بالنسبة للتأكيد هو عن قضية الجورنالينج. صراحة أنا وجدتها شيء رائع جدا ومهم، إنك تكتب أول بأول الكيوردز اللي أنت عم تعمل عليها بحث أولاً. ثانياً تكتب المواقع اللي عم تروح عليها، محركات البحث اللي عم تستخدمها، زي كأنك عم تكتب مذكراتك كل يوم. بعد نهاية اليوم اكتب كل شيء عملته خلال هذا اليوم. أنا شخصياً وأنا في السنة الثالثة حالياً عم برجع لهي المذكرات. أحياناً تبدأ تستخدم keywords جديدة، combine other words with it أو أي شيء آخر. قد ما كتبت بهاي الجورنالينج صراحة مو خسارة. هذا أولاً. ثانياً بالنسبة لموضوع القراءة، أنا شخصياً من تجربتي وجدت إنه قبل ما تبدأ، خصوصاً وأنت في بداية مشروع الدكتوراه، قبل ما تبدأ تدخل في القراءات الأكاديمية، بيكون شيء رائع وممتاز إنك تقرأ القراءات الغير أكاديمية أولاً. أنا شخصياً هذا الشيء فادني في إيجاد جابس بالليترشر الأكاديميك ليترشر. ليش؟ لأنه عادة اللي بيكونوا الكتابات الغير أكاديمية، سواء كانت بالإعلام أو بالبلوجز أو حتى لو بالتويتر، النقاشات اللي موجودة بتكون أخف من الكتابات الأكاديمية. بمعنى أصح إنه أي حدا بتجي على باله فكرة بيعبر عنها بسهولة بسرعة، قد لا تكون هي الفكرة وجدت مجال إنها تنتقل إلى العالم الأكاديمي، وهون بيجي أنت دورك. فدائما أعطي نفسك أسبوع قبل ما تبدأ القراءة الأكاديمية إنك تلف وتدور حول القراءات الغير أكاديمية والمحتوى الإعلامي الموجود، وبعدين تنتقل للقراءات الأكاديمية وتشوف إذا في أي فراغات. النقطة الثانية كمان اللي فادتني حقيقة هي قراءة رسائل الدكتوراه السابقة من القسم تبع الجامعة تبعي. لما قرأت الدراسات السابقة من عفوا رسائل الدكتوراه السابقة اللي خلص تم تسليمها واعتمادها ونشرها، لاحظت إنه هذا الشيء ساعدني جدا في عملية الفريمينج تبع إنه أنا بالضبط شو كمية المعلومات، شو عمق المعلومات اللي أنا محتاجها. أحياناً بنكون تايهين ببداية الفترة، فبنشعر إنه إحنا لازم يعني نقرأ كل شيء على الإطلاق، والدكتورة عهود وضحت حول هذا الموضوع. أكيد مو كل شيء على الإطلاق. قراءة رسائل دكتوراه جاهزة مسبقاً عملوها زملائك وخلصوا منها السنوات الأخيرة، شيء كتير بيساعد على إنه تكون العملية نوعاً ما واضحة في ذهنك بشكل كتير كبير. شكراً
يعطيك العافية. دكتورة عهود، عندك تعقيب؟
عندي تعقيب. أول شيء شكراً على الملاحظات اللي وايد جيدة، ويمكن أنا نسيت إني أذكرها بالنسبة حق قراءة الرسائل السابقة. أنا لاحظت أن قراءة رسائل الثيسس هي مفيدة صح، ولكن في بداية المطاف شوية ممكن أن تكون عامل تأخير بدل ما أنه يكون دافع، يعني خصوصاً إذا واحد توه بادئ السنة الأولى، يعني لما يشوف أنه هو لازم يكتب the whole book اللي هو 1000 from 80 to 1000 word، يعني will be intimidating. إذا كنتي تبين تقرين رسائل دكتوراه في البداية go through the structure، شنو الأشياء اللي مطلوب مني إني أنا أكتبها، لأن for sure إن هذه الرسائل أخذت على الأقل minimum 3 سنوات إنها تكون بهالصورة. فلما أنت تين كبداية صعب جدا يعني إنك ترجعين حق رسائل الدكتوراه، وبنفس الوقت من جهة ثانية تحد تفكيرك، يعني خليك open to the literature، بعدين رجع حق رسائل الدكتوراه. هذه وجهة نظري الشخصية واحترم وجهة نظرك. ترجعين حق الرسائل وتفيدك إنك شلون تستراكشر، تسوين outline حق your thesis. وبالنسبة حق الجورنالز، كتابة research journals very 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 important. كتبي اللي تقدرين عليه، واحنا الحين digital era، يعني whatever you write just save as، يعني ما راح تخافين انك you lose anything you want. save as with a new date. خلاص إذا تبين ترجعي له راح ترجعين بالديت وتلقين الشيء اللي إن شاء الله من قبل 3 أو 4 أو 5 سنين. شكرا حبيبتي عاد مرحبا. تفضل إبراهيم.
فراج السعيدي عندك سؤال؟
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
يعطيكم العافية. فراج السعيدي طالب دكتوراه في جامعة سيمنز يونيفرسيتي في بوسطن، تخصص الانفورميشن اند لايبرري ساينس. اولا احب اشكر ابراهيم والمجهودات اللي قاعد يعملونها. ثانيا ودي اقول احنا فخورين بالدكتور عهود، انا قريت شغلك وفرصه جدا جميله ان نشوفك موجوده اليوم. عندي سؤال بسيط اللي هو دائما يكون الارجيومنت بالنسبه للبي اتش دي ستودنت اللي هو extensive faces selective. مرات انت بتيجي تكتب literature review you want to do extensive because this is what you are required to do or you think you are supposed to do. بس بعدين لما تيجي تكتب انت you want to strengthen your narrative or story, so you want to select which article to include, which article not to include, which theory to think about. سؤالي, how can you find the balance between not missing the classical very strong articles or books on your topic and being really brave enough to be selective and just say this is not improving my story, not improving my argument, I'm not going to look at it.
Simply trust in yourself, trust in your arguments, trust in your knowledge, لأن أنت قريتهم من your own background and you have your own view. You have to write it as you thought of it. Either you compare yourself to other writers or authors or literature, you will never write anything. لأن بالليتراتشر في articles لما تقراهم يعني أنا personally بالنسبة لي أسأل نفسي إذا أنا قاعدة أقرأ ليش أنا أكتب؟ يعني شنو الفائدة من الشيء اللي أنا أكتبه؟ إذا يعني في articles تقراهم تقول واو أصلاً ترجع لهم عادي تقراهم مرة 2 3. في authors تقرأ لهم أصلاً for enjoyment. يعني صدق أنت أوكي تحتاجهم for your literature or project, but you will save them like aside until you finish your writing and you will get back to them. يعني عندي books أنا قريتهم يمكن 5 مرات. every time I read them like كنا أول مرة أنا قاعدة أقراهم كنا أول مرة قاعدة أقرأ لأن it's very deep and focused إنه شيء يعني يعطيك أفكار وكل مرة أنت تقرأها أساساً أنت with different background لأن the more you read the more critical you will be. وتقدر يعني سؤالك شلون I can trust my own writing viewing the literature. You have to put yourself in your writing. Nevertheless, who are you citing or who you read about, whatever, and then let the examiners or whatever your audience will be to express their opinion with it. Because reading, it's an endless, both are endless process. They will never stop. Even the literature is constantly emerging. It will never stop. People writing every day, every minute. So it's very hard to cover the whole thing first. And don't be harsh on yourself. Just write. And you will just judge your writing every time you get back to it. See the first draft and see your last draft and you will know what I'm talking about. I hope that
اعتقد دكتوره بعد من الشغلات المهمه مثل ما ذكرتي في موضوع trust yourself is we need to justify what we are reading. يعني اعتقد هذه من الشغلات اللي انا انتبهت لها مؤخرا لما انا اكتب literature review. الفكره مو فكره ان انا انقي مقالات اعتقد ان هي مقالات حلوه وتخدم الارجيومنت مالي واحطها في الثيسز. الفكره هي how to justify reading لان انا ابي الاكزامينر او الريدر لما يقرا يعرف ليش انا قاعد ارجع حق هالدراسه وقاعد اذكر هالدراسات ومو قاعد اقرا دراسات ثانيه او مو قاعد استخدم نظريات ثانيه. فالفكره هي فكره you need to justify انه والله اوكي هذا النوع من الريسيرش يحتاج هذا النوع من الثيري يحتاج هذا النوع من الريدنج. صح؟
صحيح ولكن most of your supervisors they will agree on this point that the literature review either if it is separate chapter or going through your thesis, it's a show on what you have read during your PhD. And there are specific names and authors in specific field they are looking for. Some examiners, they will just open the resource list and they will be looking for their names. We cannot ignore this. We cannot ignore this. It's very critical in your writing your PhD thesis. This is how, mostly they will skim the examiners, they will skim your thesis. They will not read it word by word. So it's very important to cover all familiar authors who wrote in the field of your research project. Either you find it, as you said, Ibrahim, subjective, or what you said? Justify it to your writing. You have to present it for sure in a specific, unique, or smooth, fluent way, but you have just keep this in your back brain, like you have to present everything you read, because they wouldn't know you came across this author or not unless you put it in your writing. Either you with it or against it. You have to present yourself.
عندنا سؤال من موزة الكبيسي. تفضلي.
أيوة، السلام عليكم، سامعيني؟
نعم.
أولاً حاب أشكرك دكتور إبراهيم، دكتور عهود، على الله يعطيكم العافية على اليوسفول تيبس. شكرا دكتور عهود. حابة أتكلم عن بس كذا شغلة ممكن أنتوا ذكرتوها حالياً بالنسبة لأن أكيد أصعب شغلة في بداية القراءة هي الفيرست ستيب. So I think يعني الواحد لازم يكون selective على الأشياء اللي راح يقراها، وبدل ما يضيع في كومة الريسورسز الموجودة. وهذه شغلة يمكن أنا أواجهها. أنا حالياً طالبة ماجستير في University of Leeds، أدرس leadership and digital education. فالموضوع نفس ما قلتي دكتورة عهود، هو اختيار الكيوردز هو جداً مهم، وسكيمينج وسكانينج يوفر كثير من الوقت على الباحث أو على طالب الدكتوراه والماجستير بأنه يبدأ في الريسورس الصح. وطبعاً هاي الشيء راح يخلق الفاميلياريتي نفس اللي ذكرتيها، وما أعتقد راح يكون في داعي كثير من إحنا نوقف على كل كلمة اللي هو translation، لأن if you read more around this topic you will be familiar. ومعظم ال authors previous studies راح يكتبون على نفس الموضوع، وممكن يكون أسماء حتى تكون متشابهة لأنهم يستخدمون، يعني خصوصاً إذا كانت يعني key authors من الموجودين راح يكونون متكررين في بعض البيبرز اللي موجودة. بالنسبة أنا يعني من تجربتي دائما لما أنا أقرأ أي ريسورس على طول أخلي جنبي، يعني أفتح الون نوت وأكتب فيها كأنه جلوسري، كأن أنا أسوي لي جلوسري. قد يكون فيه سواء كانت مثلا useful phrases, academic writing to help me with my writing and all that stuff. بالنسبة للإن نوت بعد أنا حاليا أستخدم الإن نوت، لكن لاحظت في الآونة الأخيرة كان فيها يعني some technical issues. أستخدم البوث سواء كان الأونلاين أو حتى الأبليكيشن. صراحة ما كانت عندي أي تجربة ثانية لأي سوفت وير آخر غير الإند نوت، وحاليا إذا كان في تعديل أنا عدله يدويا. والشغلة الأخيرة بس أنا حابة إذا كان عندك دكتورة عهود أو أي أحد من الموجودين يكون إذا عندكم أي tips. طبعاً هتكلمنا عن القراءة والreading و this is a very important skill. لكن أكيد if you don't read you can't write. ومثل ما ذكرتي practice. The more you read it will be likely to write better. فعادة أنا لما أقرأ أي paper أسويها عليها summarize، ولازم يكون اسم الauthor أو الريفرنس موجود على أساس إن أنا ما أنسى. بس the challenge will be the next يعني after you summarize. Now I need to combine all what I've read. Sometimes يكون يعني it's not organized or maybe irrelevant. So if you have any tips about how to organize your writing, I mean your summaries, and then put them in your writing. شكرا.
تفضلي دكتورة عهود.
ودي أول شيء أرد على آخر سؤال اللي how to categorize or coding. أنا ذكرت Atlas TI. جربي تستخدمين software Atlas TI. هو usually يستخدمونه for coding qualitative data, but I found it helpful in coding comments and summaries and notes you've taken from your literature. And you can create networks, so you can see them through networks with your how you code them, instead of having them all at once in OneNote or a Word file. Would be very hard just to combine between them. Or if you still إذا كنتي قاعد تستخدمين Word or OneNote, تقدرين كل مرة تسوين بينهم ربط، وبنفس الوقت المرة اللي جاية تشتغلين على save as copy. إذا اشتغلتي على save as copy أنت الحين psychologically أنت مطمنة أن شغلك موجود ما تغير، ولكن كل مرة قاعد تسوي له evaluation و connection. استخدمي الهايلايتس غيره، ممكن يعني غيري أماكنهم like a puzzle. بس إذا تبين software Atlas TI جربي تستخدمينه حق الكودينج والنتوركينج، وايد مفيد حق ال qualitative data or notes or summaries being taken from the resources.
شكرا. عندنا سؤال كذلك من الدكتور عبد العزيز زهري، تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام، أهلا.
أهلا وسهلا سيد إبراهيم وأستاذ عهود، شكرا جزيلا على المشاركة. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting, and actually this is one of the most important parts of doing research, because you know I'm going to share just a few ideas if you don't mind with you. I'm Professor Abdelaziz Zohri from Morocco. I teach research methods. So this is an important question, reading and how to read for your PhD. I guess the first thing we need to say is that reading for a PhD is a very complex process. Why? Because researchers normally don't just read, but they read in order to write. And somebody said it before me, so that's why it is very complex. Why it is very complex also? Because the researchers go through stages. They go through different stages. So that's why we have to keep in mind that the reading should be different types of readings. Reading in order to frame a research topic is not the same as reading in order to write your thesis. So that's something that researchers should keep in mind. So that's why the question why you're reading is very important. So are you reading to frame your research, to structure the research, engineer it? Or are you reading in order to start writing the review, the literature, and everything else? So this is a very, very important part. When it comes to reading in order to frame your research topic or research paper, I think that researchers should focus on what they want. What is the research about first? And what do they need to know about this research? So first, maybe defining concepts is very important at the beginning. Reading in order to define concepts. So I'm going to read the main concepts or the major concepts or the key concepts and try to log those concepts somewhere, take notes of these concepts. So this is going to be very helpful. So reading and writing at the same time is very important. Combining reading and writing, or integrating reading and writing, is very important. After that, when the research is framed, I think before you ask the question, how can I organize all that, you have to organize before that. I mean, you have to organize everything. If you have an outline ready before you start writing your research paper, the outline will help you read effectively, because you know what you're reading. And this way, what you are going to read is going to be combined coherently, because that's an important question, combining all the elements together in order to come up with a coherent synthesis or a coherent thesis. The first thing is prepare.
Dr. Abdelaziz,
I know I'm taking long, but just one more thing, and then
yes, please, because we are run out of time. Sorry.
Yes, I know. I'm not going to be long. Don't worry. The last thing is that because you need to combine reading and writing, is to synthesize when you are reading. Synthesize, not just summarize. Why? Because this will save your time. You read, and if you find that what you're reading is important for your research, synthesize. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. دكتورة عهود، إذا عندك آخر تعقيب قبل لا ننهي اللقاء.
I think we could use another presentation from Dr. Abdulaziz about methodology. This is the next step in writing a PhD thesis. إبراهيم.
إن شاء الله بإذن الله إحنا قاعد نرتب إن شاء الله، ونتشرف في استضافة الدكتور عبد العزيز. أعتقد أن إحنا الحين وصلنا إلى ختام اللقاء. شكرا دكتورة عهود على وجودك معنا. شكرا للحضور. حضوركم الصراحة ومشاركتكم هي اللي قاعد تشجعنا على الاستمرار. إذا عندكم أي اقتراح، موضوع معين، ضيف معين، أرجو أنكم ترسلوا لنا عن طريق الإيميل، عن طريق الجروب، أو عن طريق إيميل الشخصي، وإحنا سعيدين إن شاء الله نرتب ونلقاكم إن شاء الله الأسبوع القادم. شكرا لكم جميعا.